Just moments ago, the extended family of Lyle and Eric Menendez, you see them there, calling for their release from prison with a press conference. That comes as the Los Angeles County District Attorney says his office is examining new evidence that wasn't allowed at the original trial, where they were found guilty of the first-degree murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty. The letter by Eric Menendez detailed alleged abuse by his father. The brothers' attorney has maintained they acted in self-defense. Joining us now is trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris. Misty, always great to see you. First, I want to ask your reaction to the renewed attention on this case and, of course, the outpouring of support coming from the family.
Yeah, so there's so much attention on this, not only because there's a Netflix series that's bringing a lot of new eyes on it, documentaries, but also we've had this habeas corpus petition pending. That's the application the Menendez brothers made to either resentence, so their sentence is lower than life without the possibility of parole, or to overturn the verdict and for a new trial. So all of this is kind of coming together at the exact same time. There's so much media attention on this. So the support of the families is actually pretty interesting, Hannah, because think about it. It's their family, but it's also the family of the victims that are up there at this press conference. And that is something the district attorney will pay attention to. They always take input from the family of the victims as to what to do next with a particular case.
So let's hear what the attorney for Lyle and Eric Menendez had to say.
They had resigned themselves to being in prison for the rest of their lives. You could take two tracks on that. You could either just become a hardcore, irreconcilable recidivist, or you could do what they've done, which is create programs, counsel people, develop amazing programs, mentoring people, go to college, get degrees.
That's Mark Garagos. My producer just told me moments ago, tomorrow they may release letters from correctional officers who attest to rehab of Eric and Lyle Menendez. What's your reaction to what Mark said? And now, of course, this new piece of information about the letters being released.
Mark, of course, a great lawyer, but also very strategic, because there's two tracks here that the DA can consider with resentencing specifically. One track is what we talked about before. There's new evidence that tends to corroborate that they were victimized, a victim of sexual abuse, victim of abuse by their parents. That's one track based on the new evidence. The other track, though, relates to the California law on resentencing. That says that other factors can be taken into consideration. If somebody was subject to physical abuse or trauma, and here, why we hear Mark Garagos and these letters, rehabilitation. Were they rehabilitated while behind bars? Are they a danger? What does their sentence look like comparative to other similar crimes? So all of that can also be taken into account in a resentencing. So when you hear these letters, it's in furtherance of saying they have really been, they've been great prisoners, they've been rehabilitated, and they're not a danger to society moving forward.
Well, let's talk about sentencing, because the defense attorney has said the Menendez brothers says they should have been convicted of manslaughter. That wasn't an option at the time. Do you think it should have been an option, Misty?
So it was a lesser included offense. So they were convicted of second-degree murder. That carries a sentence of life without the possibility of parole.
Okay.
The jury could have determined a lesser included offense, which would have been voluntary manslaughter. In the trial where they were convicted, no evidence was allowed in relating to that prior abuse. Keep in mind, trial number one, the first trial, that was the second trial. Trial number one, that evidence came in, but it resulted in a hung jury. They couldn't decide whether it was voluntary manslaughter or it was for second-degree murder. So all of that's very relevant. And Hannah, this is the whole argument. With the newly discovered evidence that seems to corroborate that abuse, does it mean that if prosecutors were to retry the case, say overturn the conviction, they would go for voluntary manslaughter as opposed to those higher-level charges? And if so, the maximum sentence has already been served. So that's really why it's all a part of the consideration. And today's lens, we have a different view of victims of abuse. And would it be voluntary manslaughter right from the get-go? Would that be the only charge on the table?
Especially considering how long ago this case took place in court. The Los Angeles County DA, George Gascon is his name. He said he's re-examining this case with the new evidence. There's a letter from Eric that wasn't admitted when the brothers were convicted. Do you think attitudes could change here, even when it comes to the defense?
Yeah, I think there's a new prism through which these cases are looked at in 2024 that you weren't really seeing in the 90s, especially when it comes to abuse. So say the trial, there was hypothetically a new trial, that letter might come in, that letter corroborates an account of abuse before the killings happened, that was found after the cousin had died. And there's also an affidavit from a member of Menudo who says Jose Menendez abused him. So those would be factors a jury could take into consideration. And I think the defense would be laser focused on the fact that there was corroborative evidence for the story the Menendez brothers are telling. And that story would likely come into the courtroom today, whereas all of that evidence was precluded when they were convicted.
Misty Marris, just an incredible story. Thank you, as always, for that context, Misty.